Women have been an integral part of nationalist movements for centuries, but their presence in propaganda and visual culture is often misrepresentative. By tracking nationalist propaganda in countries like the United States, Northern Ireland, the Basque Country, and other nations in Europe, trends and tropes become obvious. In my research on the types of women we see in nationalist visual culture, I have come to the conclusion that most representations of women fall into four distinct categories and archetypes, the first being the explicitly sexist. These images are some of the most blatantly sexist, but also some of the oldest pieces of women in nationalist propaganda that I used for my study. As feminist scholar Rada Ivekovic writes, cultural or social stereotypes used in the militarist ideology and the dominant propaganda of the war machine are all sexed. Every term, utterance, and concept is given a sexual value with a distinct preference going to the male-identified form. Thus, it is men who are the brave soldiers defending their womenfolk. The national hero is a man. In these images, we see praise for women, but not necessarily on the best terms. Regardless of their representation and recognition, women are still second-class participants in a nationalist cause compared to their counterparts. The masculinist narrative prevails. The second category of women in nationalist propaganda is the mother of the nation stereotype. At the most basic level, women are limited to the role of mothers to sons and soldiers. Because of this, we see de-eroticized images of patriotic women as embodiments of nationhood, either in the form of a goddess of liberty that is fully or partially nude, or an older, maternal-like woman. Either way, the women exist in abstraction. They represent concepts and ideas, rather than actual participants. They may have birthed the nation, but they are not seen fighting for it. The third and most common category that I have found evidence for is the woman as representation of the home and family. As Mayer writes in Gender Ironies of Nationalism, the representation of the ideal woman, who restricts her fertility for the sake of the nation, who is modest, and who is committed to her nuclear family, is becoming more important in public life. The use of women as a representation of family and home life is an important one, as it mobilizes soldiers to enlist and fight in the nationalist cause. Moreover, women stereotypically convey emotion and sentimentality in their portrayals. Women also take part in reproduction. The advancement of the nationalist cause through increasing the birth rate also comes into play with the imagery of women and children. These images illustrate women performing supplemental tasks in nationalist fights, like cleaning, cooking, and caring for children. Pro-family propaganda is essential to a nationalist cause, as it solidifies a strong cause to fight for, and legitimizes the fight as it will provide for the women and children in the home. The final and most nuanced category is the tokenized, but potentially inclusive representations of women we see in the more modern era. These images encompass propaganda in which women are heavily included, almost to a point of exploitation. Still, some are more modern embodiments of a future of inclusive nationalist movements. Even though women have been active in the ranks of nationalist militaries and larger movements, some scholars argue that their mission was not effective due to their easy manipulation for official strategic purposes. In other words, for a nationalist group to be successful, it is in its own best interest to be inclusive of women, as this bolsters their public image. Equitable nationalist groups are seen as more legitimate, able to be more successful fighters, and more likely to sign a peace agreement if they include women. Still, women can be exploited in their portrayals that will ultimately hurt their history fighting for the nationalist cause. In visual culture and propaganda, however, there is potential for inclusivity and accurate representations of women. Thus, this category remains nuanced as nationalist groups struggle to adequately integrate women into the picture. But how did we end up in this predicament in the first place? As Ivekovic argues, it is men who sacrifice themselves for the nation, represent the ideal national type, and have the duty and privilege of resorting to arms. If it were not for their courage as a male characteristic of our boys, the nation would be met with disaster. Women are still regarded as lacking the same passion, knowledge, and capabilities that their male counterparts have in terms of leading nationalistic ideologies. Hence, a politician has to push the masculinity agenda when they want office. where they ought to appear strong, focused, and knowledgeable.